Welcome to the Somos Sunnyside Podcast, brought to you by the Communications Department of the Sunnyside Unified School District. Thank you for tuning in while we share stories about the bright side of education.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Somos Sunnyside. That's right, we are Sunnyside, and I'm Jose Gastelum, the proud superintendent of the Sunnyside Unified School District, and we're excited. We're excited to tell our stories. We're excited about telling what's going on in Sunnyside. We want the community to know all the great things that are happening in our 21 schools and in the Sunnyside Unified School District, and obviously the Sunnyside community. So today we have the Elvira Eagles in the house, and we're going to talk a little bit about the success Elvira has had over the years. There's definitely a strong legacy of success there, a strong legacy of high expectations. And, to say it, very short and to the point, kids are performing there. Our students are performing at high levels, and they have some amazing educators in that building that are doing amazing things. And we want to tell the community about this. We want to tell them and let them know what the secret is. And so and we got the right people in the room. So we're going to start with introductions. I want to start off with the proud principal of Elvira, and she's going to go ahead and introduce herself and then pass it on to the next team member.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gastelum. I'm Kelley Brooks-Cavaletto, the very, very proud principal at Elvira.
Hi, I'm Antonia Romero. I'm the ABSS at Elvira. Thank you for having us. I'm a big fan of the podcast.
All right, cool.
Hi, I'm Amanda Morris, and I'm the teacher coach at Elvira.
All right, so there you have it, everyone. We got the Elvira leadership team here, and many of the success comes from the collaboration that this leadership team has with their staff. And so, I just want to get right to it. Elvira is well respected in the community, not only in the Sunnyside community, but across Southern Arizona for the academic success that school has had for many years now. And so with your leadership, Ms. Brooks, that has continued. You've kept that at a high level. It's continuing strong, and it's moving in the right direction. So just to name a couple things, Elvira is an A-plus school through Arizona Education Association, through the AEA there. Elvira is an A-rated school through the Arizona Department of Education. They have earned an A. Elvira is one of the schools recognized by U.S. News World Report and ranks Elvira as one of the best schools in the nation, and that's 2 years running, 2 years consecutively. Just recently, they were on Channel 13, so tune into that because they were recognized for being a national bright spot by the Report 74. And what that means is that they are scoring 20% higher than in literacy in their community. Ranked amongst other schools, they are scoring 20% higher. And obviously, the news channel felt that it was important to recognize them, and I'm glad they did because there's definitely a reason why that's happening. And I think one of the reasons for the success is your students come to school every day. We have a little competition in our district where we give out gold medals, bronze medals, and silver medals for attendance. And I think Elvira continues to hang on to that gold medal. I don't know how many months, how many weeks, but I'm sure Miss Brooks is counting the days and the months, and she could speak to that. And then there's award-winning teachers at this school. You had this past year, Mrs. Arlene Wade Peña was Esperanza Teacher of the Year, and just amazing. So that's a huge brag sheet, Miss Brooks. So tell us a little bit about, first I want you guys you introduced yourself, but tell us a little bit about you, who you are, your educational journey, how did you land at Elvira? So let's start there, and then we're going to talk about the list of accolades that I just mentioned. I wish we had little sound effects in here and stuff, but we're going to have to add that to the show. So go ahead, Ms. Brooks.
So, I'm a native Tucsonian, born and raised here in Tucson, Arizona. Grew up in Midtown, live in the house that I actually grew up in, which is awesome. And my journey in Sunnyside actually started right after student teaching. Mr. Tom Hubbard hired me on at Elvira. I was looking for like a middle grade spot, and I was fortunate enough to meet him, and so I was a teacher at Elvira for 7 years, and it is just a very, very special place. And special isn't even like, the best word to use. Elvira is a place where our community is everything. Our values and our traditions as a school have spanned our 65 years. And so my time at Elvira has just always been so incredibly special. And I realized that, impact happens in so many ways. And I decided to shift over into leadership. And I've worked at several of our schools here in Sunnyside. All of our schools are amazing schools. And through those leadership opportunities, I was able to come back home to about 2 years ago as our proud principal. And it's Sunnyside's where it's at. So can't ask for a better place to be.
That's right. So for all those people that are thinking about coming over and wanting to start a career, got to put that plug in, right? Here in Sunnyside, give us a look. So, Elvira is one of the many amazing schools we have, but today it's all about the Eagles, right? We're here to talk about the success that's happening at Elvira. So talk to us a little bit about, the culture of Elvira. Obviously I mentioned it earlier, there's a strong legacy of success, and what I think about many times as, my background was in sports back in the day is how do those teams continue to stay at the top, right? How do you continue to perform at a high level year in and year out? And so my question is, how do we continue to make sure that students are performing year in and year out at the highest levels, that teachers are also performing in terms of delivering the instruction at a high level, and again, kids reaching those expectations. So, and I know there's a lot of intentionality behind it, right? It doesn't happen by accident. There's definitely a plan, but how do you get an entire school to get behind a plan like that?
Sure, I could speak a little to that.
All right.
This is Antonia Romero. I did my student teaching at Los Amigos with Norma Moreno. Big shout out to her over there. I'm a second generation educator. Both my parents were Sunnyside educators. My mom, may she rest in peace, Mercy Gomez Morado. She worked at Liberty. She worked at Elvira. She worked at Challenger and Sierra. My dad, Dr. Morado, he worked at Apollo. He got his start in Phoenix, came over, worked at Apollo, then transitioned at the different high schools. But while my mom was at Elvira as a teacher, she was a special ed teacher. I'm a special ed teacher as well, a former special ed teacher. And so being at Elvira and being within that community, I've learned that there are generations of Eagles that have gone through that school. And I was just reflecting on it the other day because I was speaking to one of the maintenance workers that was working at the front of our school, and he said, "Don't worry, I'll have these lines painted so that none of the buses get wet." And I said, "You know what? We don't have buses. We're a community school." He said, "What's your enrollment?" I said, "We're just about at 640 students, and it's a community school." A lot of the families within the Barrio Nopal neighborhood come to Elvira. But on top of that, the majority of our students are open enrollment. And so people come to Elvira because good things are happening. They know that their student's going to be successful. Parents understand that communication is there. And it's consistent, and that's something that we've built within our culture for generations. And so I'm really proud to be at Elvira. After graduation, I worked in TUSD for a couple of years, then found my way back to Sunnyside High School, which was one of the best decisions I ever made. And then moving into leadership and being developed by district leaders here at Sunnyside, this is where it's at if you want to be developed as a leader and to get some of the best professional development that this state has to offer. And so I'm really proud to be here. I'm proud to be at Elvira. Great things are happening.
Dang, Miss Romero, you just nailed it. I think, you know what? It's your show now. You can take over. We're going to have to give the podcast responsibilities to Mrs. Romero here, but well said. I mean, you just are all over that. You know, and a fun fact, Dr. Abel Morado was, when I was in high school at Sunnyside in the early 90s, he was the assistant principal there. Mm-hmm. So, now I get the privilege and the honor working alongside him. But, it just goes to show, the deep roots, and all kidding aside, just the deep roots and traditions in this school district. People come here and they don't leave. They become, part of this community pretty quick, whether you came to school here or not. We welcome those people that want to do right by kids and want to do right by the community. And so, last but not least, we want to hear from Mrs. Morris over here, the teacher coach, and, tell us a little bit about, your experiences and your role there at Elvira.
Absolutely. So my background, I started within Sunnyside right after graduating from the University of Arizona. I was part of the Rodell Star Student Teacher Award, and I was Mr. Townsend's first hire as his first year principal. I came in mid-year as a 4th grade math teacher, and I've been so fortunate enough that my entire career of 13 years has been within Sunnyside and all at Elvira. So when Ms. Romero is talking about that deep-rooted culture and community, I've seen it where my heart rests as an eagle. And I can't imagine being anywhere else because of the community that we've built. As a 4th, 5th grade math teacher, I can tell you that our culture is built around what students, or what we need to do, what's best for students. Mm-hmm. And that's really our goal, and that's at the true heart of every teacher at Elvira. And that's what builds that collective effort when we think about the success, is that each teacher knows what they need to do individually to meet the best needs of their students in their classrooms. And as I've been within Sunnyside, I've also grown as a leader, where I've had the opportunities to participate in Leadership Academy, as well as through the IAU program, where I just graduated with my master's, and hope to continue my leadership within Sunnyside.
So there you have it. That's the A team here. You wonder why there's A's all over Elvira. It's because of teams like this. But we're going to go to a quick break, but we'll be right back with the Elvira Eagles leadership team.
You will love SUSD. Don't believe us? Just watch. In Sunnyside Unified School District, students dream big, learn boldly, and grow confidently. From hands-on STEM and arts programs to student athletes earning athletic scholarships, Sunnyside District gives every student a place to shine. Enrollment for the 26-27 school year is now available. Enroll today at susd12.org.
All right, so I've truly enjoyed the responses from each of you in terms of the passion. I mean, you can feel the passion, in your voices as you're describing your roles out Elvira and describing the role you play, and you do it all because of students, right? You said it real well, Ms. Morris, when you talked about students are always at the center of decisions. And so, I know behind the scenes, there's a lot of people that are putting in hard work. And so definitely want to give a shout out to the amazing teachers and staff at Elvira and the strong parent support that you have there, as mentioned by Mrs. Romero here. A lot of open enrollment students. People want to be at Elvira. They choose to be at Elvira because they know what's happening there. And so let's talk a little bit about your teachers, because I know behind the scenes, they're the one in the trenches. They're the ones doing the work, and they're carrying out this vision and these goals that you have set for them, or have set for yourselves as a school and as an organization. So let's talk a little bit about teachers, Ms. Brooks. I mean, you have some amazing teachers, and we'll talk a little bit about students and your parents, but let's start with teachers.
Yeah, I think, when I think about our team, everyone's a leader, and everyone sees themselves as a leader. We treat each other as leaders. And that changes the narrative for how we think about the work that we do. That means we're all responsible for learning. We're all responsible for the development of our kids. When we think about when kids are having a rough day, somebody notices, and we step in and we support that child. And it could be a child that we're just passing on the sidewalk on the way, to the office, or they're on their way to the restroom, and we just check in with them. The biggest part is we really, as leaders, we take care of each other and we take care of our community. And so our teachers think about teaching and learning in ways that are really, really specific to knowing their craft. So we focus in on the standards. Our teachers learn and know the standards that students are expected to rise to the occasion to very, very deeply. And it's with that knowledge in mind and knowing the developmental aspect of every child that they really think about what does each child need individually, because we're also incredibly data driven. There is not a piece of data that comes out of our tests, of the work we're doing, of the formative work. When teachers are teaching, they're constantly watching and taking notes about where students are in their progress towards meeting those learning goals. And when a child is mastering that, that's celebrated. When a child maybe is struggling, we find everything we need to in order to meet that specific need of that child. We are super focused on interventions. So when we think about our skills in all block, that's part of our curriculum for ELA, for those of us who aren't in the classroom. And we think about our math workshops, it's really targeting those needs through knowing where our kids are. Utilizing the curriculum to its fullest capacity, but really it starts with knowing what that end goal needs to be and working our way towards it. Our teachers are the most passionate people about teaching and learning that you will find. And we're all professionals and we treat each other as such. And I think that level of professional respect and that idea of knowing that teachers work so hard for our community just means that we work better together.
Absolutely. I mean, every time I'm on that campus, I mean, you can feel it. I mean, people are laser focused, and it's all about kids, right? It's about, what you're explaining is the student experience and the whole child, right? Teaching the whole child. Whether that means, asking them how their day's going, giving them the good morning. It's just not what's happening in the classroom. It's what's also happening outside of the classroom. And so it takes, special people to understand that and support, and you talked about interventions, make sure that every child is being supported. And so, I love to hear that. I love to hear this piece of people deeply care about our kids, and they're just they do right by them. And so I also want to talk a little bit about how do you maintain people, and I was joking earlier when I said, what's the secret and what's the secret sauce and stuff like that. But how do you do this year in and year out? Like, in terms of performing at these high levels. I know, these kids are students like any other students at any of our other schools. They come from the same community, and but Elvira seems to perform at very high levels, and so. There's other schools that are doing very well as well, and the expectation is that all schools become A schools, right? And so tell us a bit about that grind, because it's a grind, right? It's not easy to perform like that year in and year out. So tell us a bit about that and how you guys work with teachers, how you work with parents, and what are the messages out there?
I can speak to that. Is at Elvira, we thrive on collaboration and working together and really looking at that progression of what does learning look like for a student from kindergarten all the way through 6th grade. And it's rooted into those standards, but also the learning progressions for each content area. It's also thinking about, as a site, that we've really leaned into that distributive leadership of building capacity within our teachers as leaders themselves. And so through that kind of cultural shift is we have our teachers who are rising to that expectation, to that standard, not just for Elvira, but for themselves as well, and that they've really leaned into their own expertise and mentoring and collaborating with their teams and others across grade levels, where we've built this cohesive environment to share ideas, bounce ideas off in the best interest of students. And through that, we see that through pre-service coming together and reevaluating our systems and how we collaborate in the first place, to then what does that look like for the year, and we set goals for that. And then as the year progresses, we reevaluate those mid-year and then determine, do we need to shift or do we need to keep going within what we're doing, because we can see that we're going to reach that goal towards the end. And that work takes place not just whole staff, but it takes place at the grade level teams and then through PLCs, where as supportive leadership, as a teacher coach, I'm able to go in and really have those deep conversations that are rooted within data, rooted within curriculum and standards, to then plan intentionally for what our students need.
Yeah. So, you know what, I truly appreciate the commitment from your teachers. I mean, you know, it's all leadership teams always want to set the tone of you know, high expectations, you know, some strong instruction in the classroom, and you know, making sure that you're very intentional about what you're doing to make sure you get the outcomes you desire, right? And so I truly appreciate the commitment there from teachers. So, you know, big shout out to the Elvira teaching staff. And it starts in your front office, and they're always welcoming, you know, everyone from the front office with Miss Lori, Miss Linda, Miss Angelica. You know, I always tell our schools that, you know, they're the first lines, right, of defense. They're the first people that the community sees when they enter your school, and it starts there. It starts with that tone of feeling welcomed. And so, you know, want to talk about a little bit about what Ms. Moore said. I love that you use that word, building capacity, you know, building leaders, and you do it through conversations. You know, you talked about professional learning communities, your PLCs. You know, it's so important to be intentional with instruction, right? It's so important that students can speak to the learning. And I think the other thing that some schools struggle with, you know, including some of the schools in our district and outside of our district, is there's always a tendency for over scaffolding, because we don't want to leave kids behind. We want to make sure every kid, you know, stays on the same path at the same level. And one of the things I see that I think sets Elvira apart is you keep that level of learning high, and you keep moving on that pace, right? And kids meet it, right? Kids are meeting those expectations, and the ones that are falling a little bit short, you guys recognize it and you work with them and you catch them up. And so, you know, that's where you get movement. And so, you know, truly appreciate that piece, because there is no secret to it. I mean, the secret is hard work. The secret is planning. The secret is looking at data, having conversations. And the secret is commitment, right? It's a commitment to learning, a commitment to success. And so, you know, what's the message out there to parents, you know, for, you know, I'm sure, you know, you get to a point where you can't accept all your students. You might be at capacity at some point. But, you know, if you had to message to the community, to parents, and in a nutshell, they wanted to know about Elvira, what would you say?
Sure. So this is Antonia Romero. I'm the ABSS. I oversee student services. And something that I would highlight to our parents and to our community is that there is a big sense of pride in being a champion. And we understand, our students understand that doesn't happen by accident. It takes hard work, it takes dedication, it takes being a good person at the end of the day. And so we are a nationally recognized school of kindness. And there's a lot of intentionality that goes behind that. And the reason why we put such an emphasis on kindness is because we want to create a positive learning environment. Every year, students do a climate survey. And this year, there was a huge emphasis from students that they feel proud because of the kindness that happens at Elvira. They know that if they have a situation, they can come to a trusted adult on campus and their situation will be addressed. And so my message to parents is that we are a partnership. We are a partnership. We're working together for academic achievement, for student well-being, and it starts with teachers in the classroom having that consistent communication. It starts with our students being open with their parents at home, our students being open with our staff here about how they can be successful, what a good positive learning environment looks like for them. And then it also goes back to that accountability piece and that consistency piece. And so when you hold students to high expectations and you continue to hold them accountable, they rise to the occasion. And that's what the that's what our Elvira Eagles do every day. In the morning, when we do the announcements, we're doing the character pledge. I pledge to live this day as a kid who cares, and kids understand that they have to care about getting to graduation day. And so that's something that we really emphasize at Elvira.
I think to Mr. Romero said that beautifully. It's that idea that trust, team, belief, and celebration. Those are 4 words that we really hone in on together, and that's in collaboration with our families. We spend a lot of time and a lot of effort getting to know our parents, getting to know our kids in order to build that trust. And that's not just us as a leadership team, that's our teachers. Our teachers, we're a class dojo school, which means it's not just a communication platform, but it's a space where teachers share pictures of what's happening in school every day. Mm-hmm. It's a place where we're posting celebrations about what's happening around our campus and how we're impacting the community, how our kids are impacting our community. Our kids write letters to veterans. They make Valentines for folks in care homes. I mean, there's lots of different ways that community piece comes in. And our families come to know and rely on the fact that we can be trusted to take care of them and that they're going to take care of their community as young people. When I think about the word team, a lot of people use the word family. Mm-hmm. It's great, but families also have a lot of different things that happen that can cause some conflict. Whereas a team works together, and there's no such thing as I, right? That old adage, there's no such thing as I in team. And we truly, firmly believe that. And that belief is rooted in every single person at our school, from our outstanding instructional aid team, to our cafeteria team, to our custodial team, to our office team, to our teachers, to everyone in between, and our monitor, just everyone. And that aspect of really thinking about what we do every day matters and makes a difference. And if we're not doing that, then we try again tomorrow.
Yeah, I love where you're going with that. We talk about everyone in the organization matters, right? Everyone has the ability to have an impact in an organization like Elvira, as a school as Elvira, and so it does matter. It does matter. So our actions and how we treat kids, how we treat parents, how we treat each other matters. And so you guys, obviously, needless to say, but Eagles are soaring right now, and they'll continue to soar because you have these priorities in place. And so it's been a pleasure having you guys on the show. I want to leave it with any last comments you guys have. We're gonna open the floor to any shout outs, any last comments. Did we forget anybody? Elvira is definitely a special place and has been for a long time, and this leadership team has moved it forward and continuing and setting the bar even higher. And so it doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't mean that anybody can come in and can have this type of success. It's hard work, and it takes, as you said, a team effort. And so the Elvira community is thriving, and for those parents that are interested, those community members that are interested, look us up. Come visit Elvira. Come talk to the team here, and they'll tell you about what Elvira is all about. They'll give you the tour, and it's definitely a little bit of a competitive process to get into Elvira, but we're definitely willing to have the conversations. And so any last thoughts, shout outs, comments?
I have a big shout out. This shout out goes out to Miss Brooks, our principal. She every day she comes to work with students on the forefront of everything she does. And she does it with humility. She does it with kindness. And without her at Elvira, developing our teachers, holding our students accountable, developing the capacity of her leadership team, it's a cohesive, well-oiled machine, and I want to give you a big shout-out, Ms. Brooks, and I want to say thank you for all that you do.
Hi. Well, and I'm not one to really love and
She's blushing
that.
here. The heifer is blushing.
Yeah. I from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that so much. But everything we do comes down to community. I think as on a personal level, my life's mission has always been, you're in this world for a reason, and if you're not here to make a difference, then what are you doing? And so that really leads everything that I do personally. But it really, when we think about Elvira, that's the belief of everyone. And I just want to say thank you to our tremendous leadership team for the things that you both do and what you bring to the table. Your strengths have really skyrocketed a lot of the successes that we're having, but it's because of your influence on students and teachers. And a tremendous thank you and shout out to our entire team. Our kids, for sure, bar none, thank you for your incredible hard work and dedication to your thoughts about making a difference in the world and how you're going to do that when you get older. And you're in our spots, because someday somebody's got to take our spots, right? Unfortunately, Mr. Gastelum, somebody's going to take your spot, and it's going to be one of our kids.
That's right. Hopefully it is.
And just the tremendous difference that our families make as well. So just a huge thank you to our Sunnyside community, our Elvira community, and just thank you for the opportunities you give us as a district, Mr. Gastelum.
Absolutely. Anything?
I like to shout out also not just our teachers, our students, but our families and our community partners. They truly make a difference in providing life experiences for our kids.
Well, there you have it. Just a awesome story here, highlighting Elvira and the success that's happening there. Since we're on the shout out pattern here, just another shout out to the amazing team that's over there for doing it day in and day out. We know it's hard work and we recognize it's hard work, but these individuals are passionate, and that whole Elvira team continues to do great things for awesome students. And so the Elvira students are doing amazing things as they go through our K-12 school system and graduate and continue to do amazing things, and a lot of them are giving back to the community in many ways. So with that, we're going to go ahead and end this episode of Somos Sunnyside. Hasta la próxima. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Somos Sunnyside. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it entertaining. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and share our podcast with la comunidad. For updates on future episodes and more, be sure to follow us on social media and visit our website at susd12.org. We appreciate your support and can't wait to have you back for the next episode. Hasta la próxima vez en Somos Sunnyside.